Welcome back, my fellow patriots, to the Save Our Republic daily video series. Yesterday, we took a detour. We talked about 50 reasons to love America. Before that, we were talking about the Constitution. I want to return to that. We went through the preamble, went through the separation of powers, Articles 1, 2, and 3. Very high level. There's lots of detail there, which we can dive on into other episodes. But I want to skip over Article 4, although it's important. We'll return to that perhaps in another set of episodes. But Article 5 is really important. It provides for a bloodless revolution. And what do I mean by that? I mean that we can amend the Constitution through one of two ways. We can have specific amendments, or we can have a convention. So specific amendments would be what we've done 27 times. For example, we abolished slavery in the 13th Amendment. We ratified the ability for women to vote in the 19th Amendment. And there's 27 of these. A lot of them have had to do with how the presidency and the vice presidency work, because the founders kind of rushed through and didn't really think about some of the unintended consequences of how the original document was drafted. And so instead of having to grab arms and have a fight, a violent fight over this, instead we provide for amendments or conventions. If amendments come out through the Congress, so if 2/3 of the Congress, both the House and the Senate, agree that an amendment is appropriate, they send that to the states for ratification. And the state legislatures or particular state conventions in connection with that amendment can ratify or not ratify the proposed amendment. And when 3/4 of the states agree that an amendment is appropriate, then it becomes ratified. The Constitution, interestingly, does not have a time limit. So one of the amendments that has been adopted, the most recent one, the 27th Amendment, actually was proposed by James Madison as part of what we now call the Bill of Rights. And in fact, it was I'm sorry, I forget if it was the first one or the second one. The First Amendment that we consider today was actually Amendment number 3. And one of the other amendments said Congress, either one or two, that Congress could not raise its own salary and have it take effect within the term of the Congress. So they can't all say, hey, we're about to leave. I've lost an election, and so to compensate myself for that, everyone gets $1 million on the way out of office. That's not permitted because of the proposed amendment by Madison. But it took literally over 200 years for that to be adopted. And there's a fascinating story behind that, which I won't delve into at this moment. But that's one way. Another way is to have Congress be petitioned by 2/3 of the states to have a convention, a constitutional convention. Now, in theory, it's just for amendments, but we know that the Articles of Confederation were replaced by the current federal Constitution through amendments, and actually they had a constitutional convention and rewrote the whole thing. So I think that could be a possibility. Once the convention is done, 3/4 of the states have to approve of the amendments or the new Constitution. It's interesting. The Constitution provides that there are two things that can't be amended. One was prohibiting the slave trade before 1808. There was a time limit about when the slave trade, there was a kind of a grace period where it would continue, and then after that Congress could abolish it, and it did. And there's a big controversy about whether or not that was a good thing or a bad thing, and why didn't we do it right away. I'm just telling you what the amendment says, or the article says. And secondly, it also says that the Senate cannot be changed, that you can't have less than 2 senators or more than 2 senators in connection with the U.S. Senate from each state. So those are supposed to be kind of mega powerful, unchangeable items. One, of course, has been superseded by time, and we would have to see what would happen if they tried to amend the U.S. Senate in a way that violated that article. But the key point here is that we have adopted a bloodless way, a nonviolent way to change our Constitution. And we've done it 27 times. And when we have vicious, voracious, fierce debates about our political paradigm, we can change through the supreme law of the land, through the Constitution, through amendments, and hopefully channel some of that energy that otherwise would lead to riots, violent protest, insurrections, civil war, that instead of having to do that, we have this ability to have amendments in our Constitution, which fulfills the founding first principle articulated in the Declaration of Independence, that the right to alter or abolish an oppressive government. We have elections, we have the ability to amend laws, and we have the ability to amend the Constitution. And until next time, don't forget about America's Survival Guide at americasurvivalguide.com, Patriot Week at patriotweek.org, and Patriot Lessons, American History and Civics podcast, available on Google Play, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere else fine podcasts are available. God bless you, and God bless America.